I'm Naveen Madras from India. I see that the lack of Western religion is well represented in this group. I'm here to represent the lack of Eastern religion, Hinduism. My ancestors were Hindus. My family really has always been atheists, except my maternal grandmother, who always lived with us. Now, in our house, in our little apartment, we had a wall about half the size of the one behind me, completely covered in portraits that my grandmother kept of all of her deities. There was Vishnu reclining on a snake, there was Shiva, there was Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, her I like, and Saraswati, the goddess of education, whom I also like. Now, she had all of these people on our walls, and I saw them as pictures on the wall. And I'd say I was about 4 or 5 years old when she first started telling me, when my parents weren't around, my grandmother started trying to get me to be religious. And she'd tell me about God, things that would happen to me if I did not behave. And that was my first indication that none of this was true. When I did the things she told me not to do, and none of the terrible things she promised ever happened to me. So I knew this could not possibly be true. But yet, when I was 4, every evening she had me wear the holy ash across my forehead and sit and pray with her outside. Now, I was a child. To me, this was just something I did with Grandma every evening, and I did it. During that time, both of my parents were away in another city because they could not find jobs in the city where we lived, Bangalore. So when they came back, the first day my father returned, he noticed in the evening that Grandma took me outside, put the ash on my forehead, and had me start reciting prayer along with her. He put a stop to it that day. He said, "You're not doing this anymore. You don't have to do this anymore, so stop." And so I was happy because I got more playtime. So that's how I started. And at that entire time that she was trying to teach me, none of it ever took because, as I said, none of the terrible things she said would happen ever happened. Then I started going to school. Out of my 20 years of education, all but 4 years were at Catholic schools. And they tried really hard too when I was very young to get me to believe what they believed. None of that took either. So I've been a lifelong atheist, and I remain so. I'd like to mention more about how this all came to be in my family. It was all because of my dad. In conversations with my grandmother, sometimes he'd say, "Until I started going to college, I believed." And she'd ask him, "Then what happened?" And he'd say, "That's when I grew a brain." And she'd reply, "That's when you lost the one you had." So this was an ongoing conversation between them. They keep debating this. And according to the Hindu thought, it's okay to be an atheist when you're a young person, because as you get older, you get wiser, and therefore you start believing. So when my father entered his 50s, my grandma would often say to him, "You're old enough, it's time to start thinking about God. You're over 50 and you're still a big 0. He always laughed it off. That was his response to everything. He took everything with humor. He'd always joke back to her. Oh, and remembering that, my father, my mom, my sister, and I, all 4 of us atheists. In recent years, we've started talking about how all 4 of us are 0s. And at one day, we even discussed having a flag made with a big zero on it, having cards printed with zeros on them, having a zero logo. But then we decided the essence of being a zero is having no symbols, nothing. So we're proud to be zeros. I'm a zero from a family of zeros. We are perfectly rounded, and we have nothing to point to.